If you find one of these bikes right here, it's extremely hard to actually find one in good condition. They're as rare as hen's teeth, as some of my overseas friends describe this thing. In fact, in the United States, I hardly ever see them on Facebook Marketplace or anywhere. They're just rare birds. When I found this motorcycle, it was not in a great condition. And when I talked to the owner, she actually had two other motorcycles, Srads, but they were literally in pieces, and the motors had like red RTV all over the motors, and I already immediately knew I didn't want to like delve into those because they're too far gone basically to like step into them. And even this bike right here, with it being like fairly complete, it still had its like fair share of issues that I had to deal with.
In the year 1992 to 1993, Suzuki launched the first batch of GSXR 600s and were the first water-cooled motorcycles produced for GSXR, designated with a W after the CC. At around 485 pounds, it was heavy compared to the motorcycles of today. In 1994 to 1996, the GSXR 600 was discontinued. According to Suzuki, it would get people in the doors, but most purchased the GSXR 750. And they wanted to focus on their better selling model, particularly the GSXR 750. Reviews at the time were mixed, not due to reliability, but due to the horsepower being mostly contained in the higher RPMs. Loosely based on the RGV 500 GP ridden by Kevin Schwantz, it was completely redesigned with a weight loss nearly of 100 pounds, weighing at just under 400 pounds. In comparison, the Kawasaki ZX7R weighed in at almost 75 pounds heavier. Redesigned with a stiffer twin spar chassis embedded in the early 80s, the old double cradle frames would never be used again. It came with a brand new, compact, lightweight aluminum engine incorporated with magnesium covers, and a silicon carbide electroplated cylinders. The GSXR 600 had a tire ripping of 105 base horsepower at 12,000 RPMs with a top speed of 158 miles per hour. It was no slowpoke on the roads. Shortly after its introduction in 1997, it won 2 world championships. One in 1998 with Fabrizio Paravano with Team All-Star Corona, and in 1999 with Stefan Chambon with Suzuki All-Star FS. Now the 750 won mostly endurance races between 1997 and 1999, but it did make Terry Reimer a British world champion. So what are the differences between the 750 and the 600? The GSXR 750 had a tire ripping of 133 horsepower with a top speed of 165 miles per hour. 1 year only, in 1996, the GSXR 750 was carbureted with 39mm BDSRs, and then from 1997 to 1999, the GSXR 750 Srad was fuel injected with electronics being updated each year. The biggest change was in the year 1998, came with new cams, light internals, larger airbox with electronic flapper valve and CDI ignition coils. In 1997 to 2000, the GSXR 600 Srad remained carbureted with changes to its CDI box over the years. The 750 swing arm had a cross brace to keep the swing arm from twisting with the extra torque that the 750 model produced. The GSXR 600 lacked adjustability in the Showa suspension as well as braking, only given 4 pistons compared to the 6 pistons on the GSXR 750. The 750 had the fully adjustable, lighter, stiffer front fork extensions at 43mm, and the GSXR 600 had a 45mm conventional fork end. For the front wheel, it was the same on both models. However, on the rear, the 750 was a ½ inch wider, pushing it to 6 inches compared to the 5.5 on the GSXR 600. With these differences, most of the parts are interchangeable, including the motors.
Hopelessly for a road race. And Robert, you told me about it's called it right. Everybody on Duke told on.
In 1996, the Srad GSXR 750 was born, and in 1997, the GSXR 600 was born, Srad. And that went all the way to 1999 for the 750 and then 2000 for the 600. These bikes were iconic, and they're iconic for a reason because Suzuki had put a bunch of time and money and investment in these bikes. And in fact, it's the design that you see most iconic to the Suzuki, and it all started with this bike right here. Female owner of the motorcycle. She was a diesel mechanic. She had a garage full of tools, and she had this like parked inside her little garage space. And at the time, it didn't even like fire up. She couldn't get it running because the battery was dead. So they boosted the battery, and we got it fired up. She was messing with the throttle position sensor. There was something like not right with it. She didn't calibrate it right, or whatever, but we were able to get it driving and down the road. I test drove it. It had like timing chain rattle to it, which was only at idle. So I knew that it was probably timing chain tensioner. It wasn't like a real quiet sound either. It didn't, like the idle was like all over the place. It'd go up and down. I couldn't keep idling properly, but once you got like in the throttle, it was fine. Driving down the road, it was okay. But as soon as you came to a stop, it was like, it was crazy. She had it posted for like $3,500, bought it for $2,500. Oh wait, there's a titling issue with it because she sold the bike previously to a previous owner, and he like drove the bike down that street, already signed the title, everything, paid for it, came back. He said, this bike has too many issues. I don't want to buy it. And then gave the title back and gave the cash back. She already spoke to DOL, and we went to DOL. DOL's fine, no problem, because she had the title. And we went to DOL and transferred the title. There was no issues there with that. Drove the bike around here and there, and it didn't really go, very far from here in our backyard. And I would start it up and run it, and then one day it didn't want to start like at all. There was a windstorm that happened, and it blew the bike over, and it was in the grass. I had it in the grass in the backyard, and it landed on this side, but nothing actually broke on it because the kickstand was down, and the only thing that actually broke was the turn signal up here. And I didn't think anything of it, so I took the bike and I went and parked it, and a couple days later, I tried to start the bike, and then it like locked up. What happened was, when these bikes, this one's carbureted, it's not fuel injected. The fuel, even though it has like automatic petcock, the fuel actually drained into the crankcase. It actually caused the clutch to lock up. The clutch was already in like terrible shape, and thank God the bike didn't start. And even though the bike blew over the windstorm and landed on this side, you could tell that there was previous damage there because almost all the tabs on this bike were broken off, and I had to rebuild them all, including the tail section here. Like the tail section, this thing was so cracked. Like it was really damaged right in here, and it was a spider web cracked everywhere. I had to drill it out and then fill it in with some ABS liquid plastic, basically. Hot weld and staple this whole piece right here. It had a large chunk that was missing out of the bottom of this right here. Splice the piece in here, but this tail section took me a long time to actually piece together and fix because of just the amount of damage that was to it. So you have points that this piece mounts into. You have one here, and then one here where you have these plastic spears that go into rubber grommets that hold your tail section on. All the rubber grommets on the backside, they're all pretty much, they got heat soaked or something and turned hard. The passenger stand was broken off completely. So it took a pretty good hit on this side of this side of the tank at some point. The tank itself, I didn't even notice it at first, but the front of the tank actually started leaking up by where the bolt mounts are. The tab itself took such a hard hit, it actually shifted and ripped some of the metal up underneath that tab. I had to TIG weld all the way around it and reseal it to fix that issue. I installed a new clutch, EBC SRK. You can't find the OEM clutches for this anymore, and it's worked perfect. I actually really like the clutch. It took me a little learning how to put it in because the EBC, how they design their system is you directly take it out of the package and then you put it in the bike. According to ABC anyways. It's not like the OEM style where you have to like measure the plates. The clutches in these are different than really all the other clutches I've dealt with because usually you have like the 5 springs in the middle with the Allen bolts that holds the clutch pack in. It's all held in by a big circlip, and you have to squeeze it together and then tighten the screws down. I guess throughout the years, they had 3 screws in the middle, but then they went to 2 screws in the middle for whatever reason to cut costs. To make it easier, was I just squeezed it down, tightened the screws down, and then installed the clutch pack, and everything was fine after that. The color of the bike was a terrible like blue flame with skulls, and I could tell that had been painted like years ago, because on the front there was a lot of small rock chips that just, well, it takes years to get all those. And whoever painted it, they loved their clear. They absolutely loved their clear, because on every edge it was like a hanger. You always had this like ridge of clear on every edge, and they just soaked this thing. I was like, this is ridiculous. They must have been using like a Harbor Freight gun or something. I really wanted to paint this bike and just give it a really nice finish, black and gold, some that's, you know, real classic, but not super over the top. And so I chose this design right here. Then I used what's called One Hit Wonder paint. The One Hit Wonder paint is a paint and primer in one, and it's specifically designed for plastics because it stays flexible as the plastics move, and you don't have to worry about chipping and then falling off like epoxy paint. So this is all Hydrographic paint, believe it or not. And then for the clear, I just used a Urethane show clear, and it came out beautiful on the entire bike. The tank has more coats of clear on it because of the decals. You have to, you know, cover the decals, not completely, but you cover up the decals to where they look OEM and factory. So the tank has 8 coats clear, and then the panels themselves have 4 coats clear. When I cut and polish the bike, it can take me up to 25 hours. The stickers or the decals I got off eBay from Gixxer Sticker, and I'll post the link down below. I couldn't find a black and gold with the red emblem anywhere. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, can you come up with this color design? And then would you be able to sell it to me? He's like, absolutely. And he hit it on the mark, and he actually sent it to me fairly quickly. I think he's all the way in Poland. It came in a really nice cardboard tube with a squeegee, and the decals laid out nice. They're not as thick as the OEM ones, and they're laid on top of each other, but you're not gonna find the OEM ones, you know, for this bike. And so if you see this color design, it's because of me. So the decal setup on this bike is for a 1998, and the reason I chose it for this is because the color on this bike is single black, and then the decals are over it. And I thought this decal setup suited the bike just fantastic. The decals laid out nice. I just used a little of simple green with some water, sprayed it on the panel, laid them out, and then set them in place. It gave me about 15 minutes of working time. With the big decals, you want to use 2 people. It definitely helps. Edge of the squeegee, I would use a thin piece of tape, because I found that the squeegee itself, the face of the decals can get scratched easily. So you want to use like a piece of tape or something smooth, or even hit it with some sandpaper, some light sandpaper. And then that way, when you're dragging over the decals, you don't have to worry about them getting lightly scratched. Little did I know that the covers themselves are made out of magnesium, including this one down here. So when I hit it with the torch, it started bubbling like crazy. And thank God it didn't catch fire, because it would have just kept going forever. But like the valve cover, this cover, the clutch cover, they're all magnesium. So when you do sandblasting, or you're gonna do some powder coating, you just gotta know that they're made out of magnesium, and you gotta take special steps to take care of those. As far as the other finishing touches on the bike, I powder coated the rims with a Columbia coating black, and then I used a clear over the top of black. You'll find that black is actually a really hard color to powder coat, because it loves to have a lot of small holes and dimples in it for like no reason. The original rims, they're painted, they're like a gray metallic. Srad never came out with any black rims, so if you see an Srad with black rims, someone's painted them or powder coated them. When you do the rims on this bike, it's always like a big job, because you have to like get the bike up, drop the rim down, you have to like take the tire off the rim, you have to take the weights off, strip it, powder coat it, put the tire back on, rebalance it. It's just like, it takes a long time. I powder coated and baked them right here. The system I'm using is a K 3.0 that they have. It's like their intermediate powder coater. How I baked it is I took 2 ovens and I welded them together, and I cooked it with propane and baked them at 400 degrees, and it just came out like amazing. When I do these rims, I don't like to put wheel weights on them. I use the bead system on these, and they work just fine. They work fantastic. The reason they don't use the beads in racing tires is because they're so sticky that the beads will actually stick inside the tires, and so you won't see them in racing is the only reason. But for street tires, they're not sticky enough to do that, and so you won't run into an issue. Ones that I have in here are called Dynabeads, and I'll throw a link in the description below. The gauges on this bike, they're plastic. I use the Meguiar's heavy cut and the light cut polish. It works fantastic on plastics. These had a lot of like small scroll marks in them from people just, you know, washing them with whatever, and then it scratches the plastic. So I had to like disassemble the gauges and then polish the plastic and reassemble the gauges, and they came out amazing. The windscreen bar is a Columbia coating, powder coating. It's a metal metallic gold, and then it's covered in a clear as well from Columbia Coatings. The triple tree, that's covered in a metallic gold and a clear as well. These here were snapped off. Well, not really snapped off. They were damaged at some point, so I replaced them. I ordered these from eBay. I'll put a link in the description below. I actually really like them. They just mount into the original bracket. They make all different colors, anodized. They're aluminum, CNC'd, super durable. Not like the cheapest thing to buy. I paid $50 for 2 pegs. I'm really happy with them. They came out fantastic. The shift lever's aftermarket. The original one was broken and bent, so I don't want to use it. Put a brand new one on here. It came out fantastic. I hope you liked the video. I have more videos coming out in the future, including this Triumph Rocket 3, 2300cc. Delving into the transmission. That's a second gear false neutral issue going on with it, and there just aren't any videos on that. And then I'll be going into a Pontiac Mirror. I'll be rebuilding that thing this year, and we'll see. I do it all right here. Everything from electrical to the mechanical to the paint to the powder coating. It's all done right here. If that's something you like to see, you know, hit the like and subscribe.